If you haven't watched the latest video from the rekrap 2 second channel, rekrap 1, go watch it before you watch this. I linked it in the description, but before you go, if you don't come back to this video, just take this away. Please pray for rekrap. Telling someone or thousands of people on the internet about the journey of leaving a religion like Mormonism takes a lot of courage, especially with religions like Mormonism, which don't always take very kindly to people leaving, especially publicly. So pray for him, pray for his safety, and pray that he is healed from any hurt that the Mormon church may have done to him. Okay, go watch that, and I'm just going to keep talking here. So when I watched rekrap's video, it was fascinating. Me and a few other people in the comments who grew up in the Protestant Christianity were feeling varying degrees of blown away, mostly over how he described his upbringing in the Mormon church, and it's just so different than how we grew up. For example, at one point in the video, he talks about how he didn't take a seminary class, which is just like a Mormon Sunday school, but in actual school. And he didn't take that, and 2 church elders showed up at his house and said, "Why aren't you taking this class?" And I went to a mostly Christian school. I went to summer camp. I went to youth group. I lived down the street from one of the pastors of my church, but I never took any religious extracurriculars in high school. Or one summer, instead of volunteering at camp, I made money. I worked. And it wasn't ever an issue. It was always just, okay, cool, good luck, have fun, see you at church on Sunday, I guess. And yeah, it was never a problem. But I guess for me it's a little different because I didn't step out of Christianity into agnosticism from that. I ended up taking a tangible step towards learning about God. And coming out of high school, I had a lot of really serious doubts about God. And I knew like scientific evidence for biblical history, and I understood the gospel and what it meant to be a Christian. And all of that was good, but it was all able to be undone by the God question. Is God even real? Honestly, I hadn't had the same tangible relationship with God that people that I knew from church and from youth group and from camp seems to have. I had no moment. I don't even still have a moment in my life that I could say God was speaking to me. That was God. But I've realized that God doesn't make it simple like that. It's actually in the Bible that God, he is not going to just say, "I am God." Not anymore. Not in the year of our Lord 2025 will he be so explicit. Instead, I have looked back in my life and seen God working in my life, and it's become a matter of, here are all these things in my life that the only reasonable, practical explanation is that God worked these things out for my life. And am I gonna just ignore all of that? And I don't want to dunk on Mormonism too much here, because as rekrap said in his video, Mormons are really nice. They're super nice. They're very smart. They're socially intelligent people. And my problem really isn't with Mormons as people, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a whole. Respectfully, they're a cult. And like Rek was saying, how he didn't take seminary, and suddenly church leaders coming to his house and trying to pressure him into doing it. Yeah, that never happened to me. But that's definitely a pseudo-Christian cult thing. Even reading the comments of the video, I saw a pretty significant number of other people who are in the Mormon church and feeling that same crazy pressure to be good Mormons. That Rek was looking out at his friends and saying, I don't want that. Now, it's not like families from other religions don't put pressure on their children to be good followers of any specific faith. And it's not that some religions or denominations are or are not hostile to people who are trying to leave the faith. But from my experience, I know a lot of people who grew up a Christian and then at some point decided it was no longer for them for doctrinal conflict or some sexuality struggle or whatever, but they just felt they no longer belonged to the church. And the people who were close to them and their family didn't say, you can't leave the church, X, Y, Z. It was mostly just sadness that they're turning away from something that I believe is the most important thing in life. And I get this weird, indescribable feeling when I see videos of people leaving faith or finding it. And the feeling is, for each of those scenes, is similar, but at the same time completely opposite of each other. And they're both like this supernatural feeling of love. Like when I see people joining the faith, it's like this complete joy. When I see people getting baptized at church saying, I accepted God at summer camp this year, or confessing their conversion on YouTube, or even just hearing about people who aren't Christian growing closer to the faith is amazing. And it's joy. It doesn't matter. I feel this sense of joy that is bigger than I could feel on my own. And I believe that's the Holy Spirit in me rejoicing at other people finding God. And when I see people reject Christianity or faith in general, but Christianity, it's a similar feeling. I think grief is probably the closest thing to it. But the grief is separate from how I feel personally as well. It's bigger than what I could have the capacity to feel, because you grieve over the ones that you love when they're not with us anymore, and you rejoice when they're here. And that's joy and that's grief, and it's the same, and they're totally different. And so watching this rekrap video, I feel both. I feel confused. On one hand, it's a good thing to hear that he's supposedly safely been able to separate from Mormonism. And on the other hand, it sounds as if he's fully walking away from any centering worldview whatsoever. And that's the part that makes me sad. And I know people who are floating, religiously unaffiliated, maybe Christian in name only, they're Easter and Christmas Christians. And that makes me sad, because Christianity has given me the single greatest thing that I've encountered in life, and that is knowing how everything ends. Not the world, not my life, but everything at the same time. Because I trust that God has planned everything for everyone, and everyone gets to choose if they're going to take part in that plan. And through tough times and traumatic moments, I don't have to feel like I'm alone, or I don't have to feel uncertain of the future, because I know it's all going to work out for God eventually. And this is a bit vulnerable, so I might cut this out, but you'll never know if I did. I can see so much of God in my life over the last 5 years, and I can see that the further that I got from God, and the less I knew about him, and the less I believed about him, the more and more suicidal I felt. And the more that I've learned about him, and the more that I believe about him, and even though in this time my life has gotten much more difficult than it was before, and I definitely am stretched thinner now than I ever could have handled back then, I don't have that same unrelenting dread. Not at all like I used to. A few years ago, I was just I was just baked in this existential fear that I had no way of dealing with. I couldn't comprehend how big the fear was, much less a way to cure it, to get rid of it. But this insurmountable despair was overcome by an unlimited God. And I don't know where rekrap is at, and I'm not going to presume. So I do know that he's never going to see this video, so I will say this to you, because you're watching. If you're hearing this, you're watching. I don't know where you're at, but I hope that you know that you don't have to live your whole life with nothing to ground yourself in. There's a God who wants to calm the fear that keeps you up at night. And I know that because he calmed the fear that kept me up at night. And I'd be lying if I said that I'm fine now, but God knows that I'm better now than I've ever been. And I want you to be better and more joyful than you've ever been. And if you've made it this far, then I want to give you resources that have helped me. First, and definitely a lot, there's a podcast and a book called The Surprising Rebirth of Belief in God. It's by a guy named Justin Brierley. He's very smart, and this podcast and the book is a very rational, very intellectual deep dive. Don't be scared by intellectual. It's good. But it dives into the merit of Christianity over other religions, specifically atheism. Because atheism is a religion. Believe it or not, it is. And it shows, like, really what atheism versus Christianity is, and it's not played out just by him in his little mind palace. He actually has spent years interviewing the smartest atheists and the smartest Christians and comparing and explaining and showing both sides. And it's really good and covers a lot of very, very important core questions about Christianity and Jesus. So I put the link to the show on Spotify in the description. For more info on Mormonism from a Christian perspective, there is a really good video by Mike Winger in the description. He's a pastor from California, and the link will skip like 7 minutes in, but it's a clip from a conference, so it's just, you're not missing anything. It's all housekeeping stuff beforehand. And then if you are struggling with the church, or maybe you're thinking about leaving, there's a video down there about Rhett and Link. Those Rhett and Link, yeah. And about why they chose to leave. And a biblical look addressing the things that they cited leaving the church, and whether they made their decision based on not actually understanding the Bible. And then last, there's a video from another Minecraft YouTuber called Cringy Gull about his faith journey and how he almost joined a cult, which is wild. So hopefully this video resonates with you. Pray for rekrap. Pray for a lot of people, actually. Pray for all the life stealers wherever they're at. And hopefully this video resonates with you. Peace out.